Welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. I'm Dustin. We're heading into week 10. This is your waiver wire show. You know, it's kind of a quiet week as far as the waiver wire goes, but we do got some guys for you to add and for you guys to keep an eye on. Let's start with the guys that add in all leagues. First guy, Jacob Tamme, owning about 75% of leagues right now. You know, Indianapolis tight end, filling in for Dallas Clark. You know, a lot of times when there's an injury in the tight end position, the guy that comes in doesn't necessarily have fantasy value, but it looks like Tamme could be the real deal. We think he's a must-add if you're at all looking for a tight end. Next, we got LeGarrette Blount. I'm going to talk about him until he's owned in more than 75% of leagues. Right now, he's only owned in about 70. You know, they keep giving Cadillac Williams carries out there. I don't get it. Cadillac had 8 carries for 13 yards. So I think Blount is going to slowly start getting those carries as well. Look for him to continue to get those carries. And with a matchup against Carolina week 10, we think Blount needs to be owned and maybe even started next week. Let's get into the guys that add in deeper leagues. And we start with Jacoby Ford out there with Oakland. Monster game on Sunday. They have a bye week 10, and we're not exactly sure how he's going to fit in, you know, once everyone's healthy out there, quarterbacks and some of the receivers that are banged up. But he had a great game, and we like him in leagues that count return yards. It's probably the only leagues I would think about picking him up, but in leagues that count return yards, he could get enough action at receiver and get those bonus yards for you in the returns. Not a bad guy to look at. Let's take a look at some running backs. First guy, Tim Hightower, only on about 40% of leagues. It's a mess out there with their running backs. Beanie Wells, only 1 carry, and they're saying that it wasn't necessarily his knee. It was also just him not practicing. So you could get a little bit of flip-flop here and there, just seeing who's going to get the carries out there. But we think Hightower is worth an add in deeper leagues. Another guy worth an add in deeper leagues is C.J. Spiller, only on 50% of leagues. Buffalo has nothing to play for. Fred Jackson hasn't looked that amazing, and he had a costly fumble last week. Look for C.J. Spiller to continually get a little bit more involved in the offense. Could be worth an add. All right, let's take a look at some quarterbacks. First one, Brett Favre, only on in 60% of leagues, coming off a career high in passing yards. This could be the spark Minnesota needed to get things going. You know, Sidney Rice could be back soon. You know, it might be time to think about picking Brett Favre back up if he's dropped in your league. Another quarterback, David Garrard, only on in 30% of leagues. Week 10, he's got a matchup at home against Houston. I talked about Garrard last week as a good pickup and play for this week with a lot of big-name quarterbacks on a bye. Could be a great pickup and play for you. All right, let's take a look at another wide receiver, Nate Burleson, only on in 10% of leagues. This guy's quickly becoming a nice number 2 receiver for Detroit. With all the attention on Calvin Johnson, he just seems to be left alone a lot. Last 4 games, he has a touchdown in 3 of them and at least 4 catches in all of those games. Burleson could be worth an add. You know, Stafford's injury could play a factor here, but we still like Burleson moving on. We got one defense for you, and that's Tampa Bay, only owning 25% of leagues. They're going to be at home against Carolina. Carolina has just been awful. I like Tampa Bay as a pick-up and play defense for you this week. Now, this is just a portion of the Week 10 waiver wire. To see the full list, get onto the website. I'm Dustin. I'll see you in those forums.